Hello all you bladers. Today we're going to be talking about BGT's format, which is the World Beyblade Organization's new legacy format that they just introduced to ranked. So basically a legacy format is taking an older series of a generation of Beyblade and taking the new parts of the new series to make it better. So we're going to talk about why BGT is, I believe, the best ranked format right now, why it's so good, and why you guys should give it a try. And we'll do that by highlighting some of these combinations here, just showing them for fun. So the first thing that makes BGT so good is its versatility. So the versatility is basically the opposite of what standard is, right? Beyblade vs. Standard has pretty much very few options to use. You have Dynamite, F-Gear, and you have Wind for right spin, stamina. You have maybe Vanish, and maybe some Roar and Burst for left spin stamina, combined with Guilty and Xiphoid. You pretty much only use Over, Illegal, and Giga for the discs, and there's really not much versatility. For BGT, as you can see here, there's so many options to use, and so much more. For example, you can have a straight up defense combination. This is Big Bang Genesis around Unite Dash. It specializes against attack types. You could have mixed attacker setups like Imperial on Zero Expand, Destroy Dash. You could have more like LAD attack oriented setups like Regalia Genesis on Vanguard Mobius because it has like an oval shape that like smacks like a wall, but it's still wide enough to where Mobius can get the opponent underneath it. You have Lord Spriggan on Extend Plus, a very classic stamina setup. You have staller setups like Perfect Phoenix, Outer Volcanic Dash. You have stationary attacker setups like Judgment on Octa. You have more like just layer works with driver like Cosmo and Hybrid, because Cosmo on the top is recoily but on the bottom it's smooth, so Hybrid's increased height makes the opponent hit this side more than this side, which makes the recoil lessen and have more stamina. You have specific spin steel combinations like this. You have anti-attacker setups like Union Achilles on Evolution Dash, which specializes against attackers but can still work against stamina types. You have more stamina defense hybrid setups that work good in like same spin, like this. You have Master Around Baron, because Master and Around form a good sandwich. Like this is downward, this is upward, it kind of like squishes against each other and is hard to burst. You have like good like overall defensive LAD setups like this. You have more specialized LAD setups that are like just unique, like it's a weird combo but it works. You have more attack oriented KO setups like Zwei Bahamut, Convert Quick Dash. So there's just, you can see there's so many options to use with BGT, and it's not just, oh, there's this types of combo, there's this types of combos, there's this types of combos, right? With, for example, there's also customization, right? It's not just 3 chips, there's so many chips you can use that work differently. There's Longinus and Valkyrie, which is 2 clicks, and these work best on defense types because attack types against defense types will tank the recoil. And then, okay, that was... Anyway, going back, Longinus and Valkyrie, chips like that, they work best on defense types because they tank recoil and each click is very hard to activate even though there's only 2 of them. And then there's chips like Spriggan, which work best on stamina types because they're pretty tight clicks, but there's 3 of them, so you'd have to hit it consistently. Then there's chips like Achilles or Bahamut, which work best on attack types because they hit you so many times, but they hit you pretty hard. So each click is actually only activated once, even though you're hitting really hard. So you're getting less clicks than you should be, which is good for not bursting. And then there's like obviously Dragon, which works really good on stamina types. There's Joker, there's Diabolos, which works best on like stationary attacker, like off balance kind of setups that just need some weight. You could even use older turbo bays like you have here, Orb Engard, or Perfect Phoenix. You could even use Chozy Spriggan like I have here. So there's a lot of versatility in the options, types of combos you can use. Even the drivers. The only driver is really bearing drift, and that's actually a driver that is very conspicuous right now because it's really outclasses a lot of things. But in BGT, there's a lot more drivers that are versatile that wouldn't be versatile in other stuff, right? You could have Evolution Dash is versatile. You have obviously basic stuff like Drift, or you have Bearing, right? Imperial on Destroy is a very classic one. Mobius can work on it. Electric drivers like Hybrid and Generate work well. Octa works well on like Judgment, which is very versatile. Volcanic Dash works. KO attack works, like Quick Dash. You could have Never. You could just... All these new drivers and old drivers work well on GT bays because it's so versatile. And that's just... I could go on and on to explain it, but it's just versatile. That's this point. That's the main point I wanted to say here. It's just versatile. Lots of options to use, lots of customizability, lots of that. Even with weights, you have Goku, you have like burst stopper bays. There's like different types of bays you can use. It's not just like what you might think, like, oh, Master, Imperial, and Perfect Phoenix, right? Like, neither of them use a weight. Those might be the best of the best, but so many other combinations work, they could work against it, right? Like Master around Baron. You might think this works, but surprisingly, for example, this Cosmo combo beats this in opposite spin. Or maybe you think, oh, Imperial and Destroy is so good in same spin, and it's okay in opposite spin. Well, can it do this well in opposite spin? Can it beat a pure defense type that has good stamina? Can it do well against burst attack combinations like this? It's so versatile. There's so many options to use. One way we can make BGT even better though is because it has so many attack options, we could make KOs worth 2 points. Now, what KOs worth 2 points does is it essentially forces people to use attack. Because attack is usually not a very safe option. For example, if I had a 3v3 deck, right? I want to go very safe. So, assuming that most of the combos are going to be right spin because you have Judgment as a most common right spin attacker, usually Perfect Phoenix, and hopefully you don't have too many lefts. I'd include something like Naked Longinus, and then maybe you include a more safe combo like Master Spriggan, which will also do well against lefts, and you include another safe combo which is a mixed attacker, like Imperial, right? What this does is it basically incentivizes that you use stamina, because attack is not as safe as something like stamina. So if a stamina and attack are both worth 1 point, what's easier to get? An outspin. An outspin's much easier to get than a KO, and if a KO is worth the same amount of points as an outspin, you're not going to use attack as much, and that's the problem with all the burst formats. Make KOs worth 2 points. I don't know how many times to say this, and obviously we really can't do anything about it, but like for organizers, maybe do an unranked tournament with 2 point KOs. I just think 2 points for KOs is such an important thing. If 2 point KOs were allowed, then for example, you'd use attack types with an equal setup for stamina types, right? So you'd have Judgment, which maybe it's not the safest thing to use, but you could use a more like, okay, well, instead of Naked, hoping that I go up against the right spin, I'll include a right spin stationary attacker, which I know will easily burst or knock out a right spin bay and can still have enough weight to knock out something like this Master Spriggan combo. If I lose by an outspin. If I win by 2 points, and that makes it higher reward, less risk. If I lose, I have this really good stamina combo second to tie up the score. And third is Imperial. So you start off on the attack. If you lose, it's less risk and a higher reward. And that's, I think, a really good strategy if attack was worth 2 points. And this is just an example, right? If attack is worth 2 points, more people will start to use attack to their advantage, and that's when real strategy starts to come in. Right now, with bursting being 2 points, sure, but honestly, even if stuff is like sometimes bursting, people are gonna obviously make sure their combos don't burst, right? You've got a burst stopper here. You've got Master on a round, which like literally the idea of the gimmick is not to burst. This combo might burst. You've got Paradox here. which doesn't burst. You've got Achilles and Evolution Dash. You've got an Infinite Lock Bay, an Infinite Lock Bay. Again, like a sandwich kind of combination. You've got Bahamut with a dash driver, a lot of clicks. You've got a literal burst stopper. You've got another literal burst stopper, right? I mean, there's just, because bursting is worth 2 points, the only way to win besides that, for sure, is an outspin or a KO. And if you keep making outspins and KOs both worth 1 point, it becomes an outspinning game, because that's the easiest way to get a point. But that's what makes GT so special. Even with that point, attack is still so relevant. Imagine how much more relevant it would be if KOs were worth 2 points. So that's the second topic I wanted to talk about. Make KOs worth 2 points. Incentivize attack types. And that will make every format, not even just BGT, much more balanced. Because it gives the person who won with attack a reward and more motivation to use it. Attack being played, this actually leads me to my next point. If attack is played more, that brings out so many other options, because think, attack and stamina, if they're both worth 1 point, you have stamina, and you have maybe this type of stamina bay that counters this type of stamina bay, and then you have this type of stamina bay that counters this type of stamina bay, and then you have master that counters naked, and then something to counter master. You have something like Chosy Spriggan on Bearing Mobius, and to counter Chosy Spriggan on Bearing Mobius, you'd have Orb Endguard, and to counter Orb Endguard, you have Cosmo Achilles, and to counter Cosmo Achilles, you do something like you do something like naked, and then it just goes back and forth. It's a different level, it's a different countering game of stamina types. But if attack is played, and you just put a judgment combination in here, almost every one of these combinations is knocked out, right? You can get KO'd, and that just brings a whole new level of, oh god, I could get knocked out, so I need to make sure that I have some defense. So maybe I'll include something like Heaven Pegasus here, or maybe I'll include something that is LAD focused, but more attack setups, and I can stall around to avoid contact. Maybe I can include this anti-attacker. See? With BGT, it's still versatile, but if you don't include attack, you get rid of that fear of being knocked out. So attack is out. And if attack is out, there's really no need to counter it, which means you won't need this, you won't need this, you won't need this, you won't really need this to counter it. And obviously, attack is worth the same amount of points, so you can't physically put attack in because it's not as safe to use. You get rid of your pure defense type, and you get rid of your mixed attacker because, again, stamina is so much more safe. And what do you have? What are these combinations here? Stamina, 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 stamina. LAD, LAD, same spin, mix, LAD, right? Like, without attack, even if it is balanced, you just have so much more stamina. But BGT has the potential to be the best format, I think, just because of it has so much versatility. You could make formats like Burst or Burst Limited. Burst Limited is different because you need to rethink the whole ban list with that. Like Geist Fafnir is allowed, but Extend Plus isn't. High Extend Plus is allowed. Bearing Drift is allowed, but like Spriggan Requiem's banned when like these like super heavy turbo bays are unbanned, are allowed. It's just Limited's different, but with like Burst Standard or Burst Classic, by just including attack having 2 points, you make the format so much more balanced. So that is the second point. Attack, make the KOs worth 2 points, not just 1 point, because then attack is played and people become more fearful of attack because you could just lose 2 points like that. Just by the snap of your fingers, you get knocked out because you were cautious. Or you weren't cautious, right? You just played stamina and you weren't careful enough, so you got knocked out by an attack type. You're down 2-0 and you have just 2 battles left. 1 more loss and you lose the battle, right? So it makes people a lot more cautious, and that means defense types are included, and then that's where stamina types come in, and it really just brings the whole triangle and all of these specialized drivers too, right? And another thing I wanted to talk about just briefly is the inclusion of Super King. The inclusion of Super King was it was allowed for unranked at first, and then when it became ranked, I think I didn't see the rules when it became ranked, but recently I hosted a GT format unranked, but I followed the ranked rules anyway. Besides the dual spin, I hosted a dual spin BGT tournament, and I followed the rule that GT was not, or sparking was not allowed. So basically, I think sparking was a good inclusion in GT because it also allows single chassis to be there. And then that kind of sparking is not a very balanced meta, but that's because of Tempest and all those other things. If you include rings like Glide or Super or, well, not Hollow, definitely not Hollow. That's, no way. There's no way it's Hollow. Hollow is insane, by the way. If you saw the video I did of like Hollow Lucifer 2 against DB Base, or if you've seen Hollow in action during sparking, like on a good combo, it's really good. Hollow is just, it's got like the same level of stamina as Tempest, and yet it hits harder than Rage, like, and it has good opposite spin, and like, it just hits hard. It's good stamina. Hollow's insane, but if you include other sparking bays, like lower level sparking bays, it just adds more customizability. And you can add single chassis also, right? There's 1S and there's 1D. Obviously, you don't want to go too overboard, but this was actually like, I believe Shindog actually tested this because in the first couple BG tournaments, I think almost a year ago, he tried out this experiment he talks about on a thread in the WBO where he basically takes Ignition Dash and Hybrid, right? Two very safe drivers, right? Because attack is not worth 2 points. It's safe to use. And I think he got like at least 3rd place in both those tournaments. But he basically did Curse Solomon and Abyss Helios 2 on Hybrid and Ignition Dash. And then he did Master Spriggan Hybrid and Perfect Phoenix Hybrid. And he found that the GT bays were way better than the sparking bays. So sparking bays still aren't really that good. I think just for simplicity's sake, it does make sense to have them banned. But now that we kind of have it ranked, I think if we start hosting more events with BGT, we can kind of start figuring out what should be allowed or not. So really, the only changes in general are just make attack worth 2 points. I really just wanted to make this to ramble on about how good BGT is. So if you don't know what BGT is, definitely try it out. It's a great format. You don't even need to have that many parts to try it out because there's so many parts that you're able to use that you don't have to have every single new release. You don't have to have the newest release. You don't have to have this specific set that costs $800 like with Bearing Drift or Metal Drift that is in Burst Standard. This is a legacy format. Legacy formats are probably better than the current whatever the meta is. Right now it's BU and the next generation is going to come, right? Legacy formats are so much better because they're older bays. So there's not new parts being released. You never have to buy new parts. You never have to waste your money on stuff that you're only going to use like maybe once until something new comes out, right? Like if Bearing Drift is like $800 and then a new driver comes out, you're just wasting your money on that, right? So GT is a very versatile format. I think attack types should definitely be 2-point KOs, maybe include sparking, and yeah, it's very versatile. Definitely try it out and try playing the format. And then obviously legacy formats, as I said, they're much better to play than standard because you don't need the newest releases to keep up with them. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for this video. Subscribe if you enjoyed, have fun, peace out, and don't forget to keep on blading.